The question of what to do with people who are interested in pedophilia, bestiality, voyeurism, and other depraved sexual acts is wrought with debate. The general public usually believes such citizens should be locked up in prison. The academic world has been recently pushing research-based initiatives that emphasize education and rehabilitation. The question is, which approach will make society safer? Which is more effective at treating the root cause of the issue? Should a combination of both criminal punishment and mental health treatment be utilized? Hi, I'm an incoming law student, so please take everything I say with a hefty grain of salt. In this video, I will go over the status quo, issues with it, benefits of it, and what is proposed to be done in the future, emphasizing Canadian legislation and institutions, but most of the information provided is applicable globally to countries like Australia, New Zealand, the Netherlands, and somewhat to the US. The book that got me interested in this topic academically is Pedophilia, Hebephilia, and Sexual Offending Against Children, edited by Klaus M. Bayer. This is a Swiss textbook that, in its preface, explains that, quote, pedophilia is classified in the International Classification of Diseases under Disorders of Sexual Preference and in the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders under paraphilias, and as pedophilic disorder as a pathological paraphilic disorder. In the ICD-11, the generic term is also pedophilic disorder, exclusively specifying prepubescent children and not including early pubescent children, as in the ICD-10. Under both diagnostic systems, the diagnostic criteria refer to the orientation of sexual preference toward the prepubescent developmental body age of children. This is an extremely important reminder. Pedophilia and hebephilia are mental health illnesses, not just potential criminal offenses. First, the status quo. In Canada, if the victim is under 16 years of age, it is not a defense that the victim consented. This is because the legal age of consent for non-exploitative sexual acts in Canada is 16. Exploitative acts include prostitution and the production of pornography as illustrative examples. Additionally, it is not a defense that the perpetrator believed the victim to be older than 16. If you watch true crime videos regarding predators or are otherwise familiar with the frequent excuses perpetrators claim for their actions, you will know that prohibiting these claims as defenses immediately destroys the proposed defense of most perpetrators when they are being interrogated or questioned. According to Section 151 of the Criminal Code of Canada, every person who, for a sexual purpose, touches, directly or indirectly, with a part of the body or with an object, any part of the body of a person under the age of 16 years, A, is guilty of an indictable offense and is liable to imprisonment for a term of not more than 14 years and to a minimum punishment of imprisonment for a term of 1 year, or B, is guilty of an offense punishable on summary conviction and is liable to imprisonment for a term of not more than 2 years less a day and to a minimum punishment of imprisonment for a term of 90 days. However, even if the defendant is over 16 but under 18, punishment can still be incurred. A summary conviction is one that is resolved without a jury. The Cruz law firm explains that it is usually a, quote, less serious offense. But is imprisonment the only option for convicted pedophiles? And does this method of punishment work at sufficiently deterring these crimes? Pedophilia crimes have steadily decreased since 1991, but still occur at a police-reported rate of approximately 60 incidents per 100,000 people. It is extremely important to note that reported rates do not equal the actual rates of the crimes occurring. For example, researchers Conroy and Cotter of Statistics Canada write that the rate of sexual assault for Canadians aged 15 and older is approximately 22 per 1,000. This is approximately 30 times higher than the police-reported rate of pedophilic crimes. Now let's talk about mental health options for people experiencing urges to commit heinous sexual acts, for example, pedophilia, bestiality, voyeurism. CAMH, the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, offers a sexual behavior clinic. Off the bat, there is a huge caveat for this program. If you have pending charges, are awaiting sentencing, or are on parole or probation due to a sexual charged offense, you cannot participate. In this way, CAMH's program is somewhat of a preventative measure. However, as I explained, the rate of sexual crimes is substantially higher than the police-reported incidence of these crimes in terms of prosecutions and guilty verdicts. For this reason, it is possible that participants in CAMH's programs have acted on their desires. We must wonder, why does this caveat exist? Are people who have already been charged considered too far gone to remedy? Is CAMH not equipped to deal with those who have been criminally charged? CAMH does not have an explanation publicly available for this decision. However, the Sexual Behaviors Clinic does list other resources for charged or convicted offenders, which I will get into. Let's talk about CAMH's program. Here is a self-described explanation of the clinic. The Sexual Behaviors Clinic, SBC, is a multidisciplinary team including social work, psychology, psychiatry, and sexology. Our treatment follows a cognitive behavioral therapy (CBT) model and may include aspects of acceptance and commitment therapy (ACT), the Good Lives model, dialectical behavioral therapy (DBT), and relapse prevention. We work with our patients to develop treatment goals with a focus on living a healthy, balanced, and safe lifestyle. We work from a non-judgmental and inclusive framework. We also work with diverse cultural and linguistic communities. CAMH interpretation services are provided for patients as needed for assessment and treatment. Here's the section targeted at those interested in joining the clinic. Are you worried about your sexual interest in children? Are you worried about your use of child sexual or exploitation material, often called child pornography? Do you have concerns about crossing boundaries with children? Talking for Change offers free and anonymous help for people concerned about their interests or their behavior involving children who do not have legal involvement. This is available across Canada and for people of all ages. This service is available via a phone helpline or chat on our website. Talking for Change is a free anonymous chat for those interested in receiving help for their thoughts. Anonymity is a very important factor to discuss regarding this issue, though I don't have enough time in this video to give you the whole tangent on the pros and cons of anonymity in pedophilia, rehabilitation, and research. In short, anonymity increases the chances that pedophiles and other sexual offenders or potential offenders will step forward and discuss the issues that they are facing. However, it is usually the opinion of the general public, upon learning of such anonymous measures, that they should not exist. The general public usually believes that anyone with such thoughts should be immediately criminally reprimanded, something that is impossible when the rehabilitation and/or research programs are anonymous. CAMH does offer a non-anonymous assessment, writing, Talking for Change also offers free assessment and therapy to individuals 18+ in Ontario and Atlantic Canada for the same issues. This part of the program is not anonymous. There are options for those who have been convicted of crimes, such as the Regional Sex Offender Treatment Program, but outcomes from this program are bleak. The National Institute of Justice writes, This inpatient program provides group and individual therapy to those who have committed sexual offenses and have recently been released from prison in Ontario, Canada. The program is rated no effects. There was no significant difference in sexual recidivism rates between the treatment group and the comparison group. A no effects rating implies that implementing the program is unlikely to result in the intended outcomes and may result in negative outcomes. This is a devastating blow. It is important to note that the no effects rating is based on the result of a single study, however. So, this may have you thinking, is mental health treatment for sex offenders pointless? In the book I mentioned earlier, Pedophilia, Hebephilia, and Sexual Offending Against Children, best practices are explained. One option is medication. Beyer et al. 2010 explain that sexual impulses and fantasies can be reduced via use of medication. An interesting connection between being criminally charged and outcomes of rehabilitation programs is that, as Beyer et al. 2009 write, people who have not yet been charged have a greater willingness to change and are generally more aware of the problem of pedophilia societally. This could help to explain the no effects rating given to the program designed for convicted criminals that I went over earlier. To quote the book, in a section regarding unrealistic and realistic outcomes of treatment, In the view of research up to this point, the therapeutic goal of a lasting change to sexual preference, in particular in people with an exclusive attraction to the prepubescent and/or early pubescent body ages, is held to be unrealistic. In fact, in the modules of the proposed treatment plan, the second module is titled Acceptance. Those experiencing deviant sexual fantasies must come to terms with their thoughts and fantasies before moving forward. I will now go through the modules of the Beat It treatment plan. To introduce the plan, again citing the book. The Berlin Disexuality Therapy is a therapeutic approach developed for the treatment of people with pedophilia that has existed in manual form since 2013. It is a group therapy program intended to take 12 months to complete and consists of 13 modules. I will now go over the modules. Module 1 introduces participants to the treatment plan and is relatively intuitive, so I won't go over it in much detail. However, one key goal of Module 1 is to establish a positive therapist-patient relationship. In essence, if this is not accomplished, the following modules are relatively moot. Module 2, titled Acceptance, has the stated goals. Communication of a biopsychosocial etiological conception of sexual preference. Communication of knowledge about sexual preference as a stable constituent part of the personality. Stable, in psychological academic contexts, means that something is unchanging. Communication of the therapeutic concept of acceptance and providing support for its implementation. Communication of the notion that, in this therapy, change means building up behavior control in order to directly and indirectly prevent child sexual abuse. In this context, change does not mean changing one's sexual preference. Module 3 is titled Motivation, with the following stated goals. Praising of patients' efforts to work on their behavior and recognition of their ambivalent motives and doubts. Working on the patient's status quo regarding their strengths and resources, current behavior, self-perception and perception by others, benefits and interests, and aspects of sexuality. Communication of the concept of motivation as a dynamic construct with different steps. Supporting the patients into identifying their expectations and working out concrete individual goals for therapy. As a whole, encouraging the patients to continually analyze the state of their own motivation and supporting the development of this motivation towards change in behavioral control. Module 4, titled Perceptions, involves educating the participant regarding the cognitive distortions associated with their fantasies and the negative impacts of their behavior should they act on their deviant thoughts. Module 5 discusses emotions. To illustrate the intent and outcomes of this module, I will read an excerpt from an interview written in the book. Patient. First, I want to give a graphic content warning. This interview does discuss pedophilia and an act of pedophilia. I will now begin. Patient. It was my sister's birthday and we were celebrating in the garden, when my nephew asked me to come to his room so he could show me his new video game. We sat at the computer, played the new game, and were fooling around. My nephew started to tickle me and I had an erection. He kept tickling me, so I took his hand and placed it on my determining the resources that each of the group members has to control sexual impulses. Communication of knowledge about mechanisms such as downplaying, denial, and rationalization of sexual fantasies and act. There is additionally a Beat It manual for participants aged 12 to 18 because, as the authors write, such tendencies and/or thoughts often emerge during adolescence. Module 7 is titled Empathy and Adopting Other Perspectives. In this module, the participant, now armed with a deeper understanding of their own fantasies and their resources, considers how others are affected should they act on their fantasies. Module 8, Biography and Schemata, emphasizes understanding one's own thoughts, problematic behaviors, resources, and individual sexual preferences. Module 9 emphasizes management and problem solving, and Module 10, Social Relationships. Module 11 teaches participants about intimacy and trust. Modules 12 and 13 wrap up the program by planning for the participants' futures and focusing on protective measures. To conclude, I will introduce the concept of Dunkerfeld and the pivotal Berlin Project. In the research paper titled The Berlin Prevention Project Dunkerfeld, Bayer et al. 2021 write, the Prevention Project Dunkerfeld, or PPD, was officially launched on June 6, 2005, World Children's Day, during a media briefing at the Federal Project to Stop Further Abusive Behavior. I want to note here that 98% of convicted pedophiles are male. Back to the intro. At the same time, there was a notable lack of qualified treatment and counseling services for this group of people. Existing therapeutic services for pedophilic, hebephilic men were, at that point, directed almost exclusively toward convicted sex offenders, that is, offenders currently living under non-confined or confined correctional authority. This meant, however, that men sexually attracted to children who were unknown to the authorities, remained unconsidered. Belonging to this group are both men who have committed sexual offenses against children but have not yet or ever become known to the criminal justice system, and men who have never acted in accordance with their sexual interest toward children and had never sexually abused a child. As the term Dunkelfeld was applied to both unknown and unreported crimes, the name Prevention Project Dunkelfeld was chosen. As mentioned, a great discrepancy is assumed to exist between the number of sexual offenses against children and the number that get reported. This often leads to distorted research and results, as studies of causes for sexual child abuse are based far more on research samples from forensic contexts than non-forensic contexts. Through the therapeutic support of the group of non-offending pedophilic hebephilic men, the PPD follows a new approach to the prevention of child sexual abuse and makes possible the non-forensic review of data from the forensic context. To this end, an outpatient center was established, offering diagnosis and therapy for persons who feel attracted toward children and worry about committing sexual abuse against a child, for the first time or again. What are your thoughts on this issue? I hope you learned something from this video. Thanks for watching.